Hello, hello, hello. Have you ever had something to say and went silent? Have you ever stumbled through conversations to think later, that's what I should have said? Do you feel like there are times when your message gets lost in translation? Well, get ready, my friends, to level up your communication skills. I'm Kathy Riley, your host and communication expert with over 25 years in litigation and another 15 as an entrepreneur. Our goal here today is to share tools, systems, techniques guaranteed to shift the way you connect with others. From mastering the art of tough conversations to cultivating a mindset that screams confidence, you'll learn how to break those bad habits and shatter communication barriers. It is with great honor and privilege I am excited to say we have an expert here. From Marine Corps to mentor, Miss Tami McVay is one of the few. Matching her Marine-built mental and physical prowess with her genius in 20 years of corporate IT, she is an entrepreneurial force in this world, consistently making a massive difference. Her unique journey in a male-dominated world, from the days of Desert Storm to standing on Microsoft's stage, she has continually made bold decisions and fought for the life she wanted with strength and kindness. She now helps driven entrepreneurs, professionals, and companies scale their results personally, mentally, and professionally through her consulting, mentorship, and events. Her troops today are trained to be the world's best leaders, built for respect and results. She lives with her motto with pride to build the few to impact the many. Tami lives here in Colorado, so she's one of my neighbors. She lives with her dog Freckles, actively volunteers with veteran charities, and is a proud member of the Women's Marines Association, and has a passion for travel, having been to 31 countries to date. Welcome, Miss Tami.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you. I can't wait to dig in.
Oh, this is gonna be so good, so good. So, let me ask you this. You've been a leader um throughout your career, military, all of that. Have you always been a leader?
Ooh. Uh, I'm gonna say no. And the reason why is like when I was growing up, I had a single mom. We moved around a lot. I had a brief stint in Colorado when I was 12 and then went back to California. And so I was just always the new girl at the new school. And my maiden name actually started with A. So I was always the front of the class. I had, really good grades, but it was always like trying to build new friends. And so I never really stepped into that leadership really until I got into high school. And then we lived there for 4 years. So then I started to make more friends, honor student then. And then that's when I started, looking at the military as my next step.
Nice. So what would you say? Okay, in high school, we're girls in high school can be mean. It can be rough. Um, can you recall any situation where you were able to kind of flip that leadership switch and kind of either stand up for yourself or show up differently?
Mm.
I'm testing your memory here a little bit.
Um, I think that I did become a cheerleader, which actually makes me laugh now because it's so uncomfortable for me to be like the kind of girl, but at the same time, it having to get out there and perform and do these dance routines, it was so uncomfortable for me, but it was also fun. You're having fun and you're doing that. And so to have to stand out there and encourage, not only your team, but also the audience and getting them involved. I remember our rival high school, we were playing them in football and we were losing, and they called it the victory bell game because they had this big silver bell, and whichever high school won in our town would get to carry that bell. And we had had it for years and we were losing so poorly in that game. And as a cheerleader, you can imagine, standing on the sidelines twiddling your thumbs. And so to have to really just balance that, when to rally and when not to. And so I would say that that probably started a little bit more leadership um, in my journey, just like having to stand out. But otherwise, I don't know. That's a good question. I know it's gonna be one of those things, like just like your intro said, you're gonna get off this and be like, "Oh, I should have said this." Like all of a sudden, a story's gonna pop into my head.
Well, I believe like leadership begins within. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, absolutely. And so even just being an honor student, just having to take control and know that responsibility of I got to do my homework and I got to study for this class. And if I want to get to college or, get a good job afterwards, like I have to build up my own personal leadership.
Yeah, and well, what I find interesting is you said then you surrounded yourself with like-minded people, right? So your cheerleaders, your team, then you had the audience, and so talk to me a little bit about, well, first of all, one, if you agree, and two, your thoughts on having and surrounding yourself with like-minded people as you navigate leadership for self and for, your team or your event or your troops or your company.
Yeah. It's so critical because as you grow, you're going to start thinking differently. And so if the people around you, they don't have that same mindset, then it can be really challenging because you'll start to feel stifled. I know that there have been times in my life where I felt like I was stifling these best parts of myself that were really growing. And so you have to constantly get in those rooms, in those arenas, and those friendship circles that where you can start having some of those deeper conversations. Otherwise, it's just really easy to just be comfortable and, everybody's thinking the same. And so until so yes, there's like-minded, but you also want to get around people that are expansive, that they're going to challenge you to grow. And so I've just met so many incredible along my journey, but I feel like it's kind of incredible. So, and there's Thomas. Oh boy.
I love Freckles. Yay! Well, let me know if he ends up making a little video appearance too, because we'll
Okay.
say hi to him. So let me ask you this. In the have you ever had a moment where, okay, you're in your leadership, right? Where there's something you need to do, and whether it was personally or professionally, and you didn't want to do it. You weren't feeling it. You didn't get up right. You're like, ah. So one, have you ever had that? And two, what did you do to get around it?
So the first thing that came to mind, and I'm not sure if this is exactly where you're kind of going with it, but I was offered some pretty big projects in my corporate career and I turned them down. And I know that there's that natural mindset of, if you want to grow and you want to start making more money, like you just say yes to these promotions. But I was really good at my job as a software developer and I was enjoying what I was doing. And I knew that if I started saying yes to these things, that I would be in meetings nonstop. I've been doing nothing but writing documentation and project plans and things like that. And I'd get away from that thing that got me to where I was. And so I really had to look at like the life that I was creating both at the office and then also at home. I was traveling, I was doing adventures with friends, and I just knew I didn't want to take on that level of stress. And so I turned them down, and I had people that I worked with asking me like, well, why would you do that? Like, don't you want, more money? And of course, like everybody wants more money. You can do more things, you can make a better impact. I'm a big proponent of charity. So there's all those things. But at the same time, you have to really weigh what's truly important to you and knowing that I could take the money that I have and learn more about investing and make that work for me in a different way without saying yes to something that I truly wasn't going to enjoy.
Oh, that's so good. So good. So this is going in a different direction than I thought, and I love it. So, it sounds to me like you are and have been very clear on your core values. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
And how How do you do that? How do you get clear on what's important to you? I mean, you got out, you get this proposition for this great promotion and all of this money and all of this, and how do you pause, right, to really identify what matters?
Mm.
Take us through something like that.
I think you nailed the head on the word pause. Like so many times it's we get these opportunities or someone asks us to go do something or participate in something and you're just like, oh, that sounds amazing. You're like, yes. And then all of a sudden you like, once you have that pause to think about it, like, ooh, what did I just do? And then now all of a sudden you have to show up. And so I think just really taking that moment to reflect. And it- as a Marine, I'm very uh, a Marine and a software developer. Like in my early days, I was just very analytical. Like you just do what you do, you just show up. You go to work, you do your job, and then. But as I started to meet other people and get into personal development, I started doing that self awareness, and I started looking at like, how am I feeling? Like the Marines, like they
Ah.
teach you how to shut down those feelings. And so all of a sudden I had to tap into that. And then I had to tap into like looking at the other person and like, well, how are they feeling and what kind of energy are they putting off? And how can I either be a part of that, lift them up, or step away from it and set those boundaries? And so it's I'd like to say that all of a sudden I just woke up one morning when I was 24. I'm like, these are my values, and I'm sticking with my values. But it wasn't quite like that. I think in the Marine Corps, they drill in those leadership traits and those values, and they become such ingrained in who we are and how we think and how we show up that I don't even think about it. Like when I was in my 20s, I definitely wasn't thinking about it. And it was only as I got older that I realized how much that shaped me in the way I think and the way I operate, that I have such an appreciation and a gratitude for my military time that I didn't have when I was younger. And so as I've journeyed on into this entrepreneur world, I thought, how can I help somebody who wasn't in the military really ingrain those into themselves and discover what was important to them and then really stand in that strength?
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So with military, and before I go any further, thank you for your service.
Oh,
I mean, it such an honor, truly. And so there's somebody who's never served, somebody who, and I know there's a lot of people listening that maybe struggle with that discipline, and that's something that I know the military has truly taught you is how to be disciplined. What would you say is one great tip or tool to be more disciplined in staying in alignment with what really matters?
for me, it always comes back to the physical because in the Marine Corps, it started that way. They have to get you in that great physical shape so you're ready for anything. But, once I got out of the military, I health wise, like I wasn't the greatest. Like, so you're like, oh, this is great. I don't have to go, do all this exercise. But then I got back into it and I got more into the bodybuilding side of things and weight training. And I feel like anytime I'm feeling out of sorts, insecure, all those things, it all comes down to the physical for me. And so I just start taking care of myself again. And then I start thinking clearer. I feel stronger. When you get your workout on, you're more apt to eat better. I'm think clearer, so I'm more creative. And so it just creates this big snowball effect of, you know, just making my life better. And so that the discipline to work out will start to bleed into all these other areas that you do. And so for me, that's always been my go-to. Um, but while we're on this topic, something I find super interesting is I'm a big proponent of StrengthsFinder by Gallup. And so when I first left my corporate job and started my journey, I took the test and all my strengths were in the executing. I was, and because I was so disciplined, I was doing project management, all these things. And then at all these years later, like focusing on social media, my strengths have shifted into more influence and less about the executing. I'm like, oh, I missed the executing side. So even as a Marine, like I constantly work on trying to keep my discipline where I want it to be.
I love that. And it's true. And to add to that, we find I've done those strength finders and I've done it, my background, I'm a psychology major. Neurolinguistics, all I love the brain. Love, love. I'm a nerd, happily a nerd. And so have taken those tests and various forms of them over the years. And what I find is what I'm good at and what I'm passionate about are two very different things.
Mm,
And so, and through the years, my strengths have changed because we change,
mhm.
right? So we're humans, we're complex beings, right? And the version of Tammy is not the same version of Tammy 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and then you're only 30, so we won't go back that far. So so would you agree? I mean, your strengths change as you grow and develop.
Yes, and so it goes back to our early piece of, the people that you surround yourself with and the way that you're living your life and making those choices all along the way. It becomes this like super tiny mental change that all of a sudden you're like, if you're not careful, it can take you way off your course, or in a good way or a bad way. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I got here. And so and it's all from building those strengths and building new skills that might become a new undiscovered strength. Like I always tell people, like, how do you know you're not the next Picasso if you've never painted? And so to be able to, experiment and start to follow these little passions that you have and just see where it takes you.
I love it. And to build on that, now you talk about courage, and that's something that I talk about a lot as well, because as humans, we're not born with confidence. Confidence is something that your discipline will lead you to. It takes you doing an action to start developing that confidence. Would you agree with that?
Somewhat. I think when we're born, I do think we are confident because you don't know any better. It's those things that we're
Ah.
taught to be afraid of. Then all of a sudden we're, apprehensive of heights because we fell off the couch, and so it starts to, so that's the only piece. But in general, yeah, I think that courage is just like discipline. It's one of those things like you constantly have to work on too, because you are evolving along the way. And like, for me, who's been adventurous all my life, like my level of courage might be so different from somebody else. Whereas, you take a Marine who's been in combat, his level of courage is so different from mine. And then you take somebody who, has never taken a risk in their life, and all of a sudden, just like the smallest thing requires them to drum up courage. So it's never a case of, comparing or apples and apples. Like everybody's level
Yeah.
of courage is different.
We're all different. We truly are. And what would you say if you are sitting across the table from somebody who has that fear of communication? Like they're somebody that they're sitting in a team meeting, or they're even in a family dinner, right? And they have something to say and they do that. And what I call their itty bitty shitty committee kicks in and they stay silent. I often talk about it takes that courage, right, to step into that conversation. What would you say? What advice would you give someone to actually use their voice and speak up for themselves and step into leadership?
Mm. One of the best things that I had ever heard that made me think about it a little bit differently is that, we make up courage to be this big thing that I have to drum up, but any conversation starts with just 10 seconds of courage. Like, because the moment you open your mouth and you get it out there, like, okay, now the cat's out of the bag, and then the conversation starts to flow, either in a good way or a bad way, but at least like you just have to take that 10 seconds of courage. So whether it's, you're bungee jumping and all you got is that little second to step off, but it's those little moments, those little baby steps that you'll gradually get better and better. And I mean, family, conversations with family and anybody that you're really close to, that they know you the best. And so sometimes that can be challenging, but at the same time, like if you don't speak up with the people you're closest with, it's going to be, it can be extra challenging.
Oh, so good. Well, and it's funny because we have a tendency to say things and be more courageous around strangers
Mm,
than we do the people we love. Because again, the itty bitty shitty committee kicks in.
yeah.
So, and I think oftentimes we hear our family, they sit there and they're judgmental, shocking, right? Family being judgmental, like, what are you doing that for? And it's like a kick in the gut, right? So to shift into that courage and to kind of, not internalize um, a lot of the negative responses, especially from family members. If we can equate that to like complete strangers who sit there and say, "Yeah, no, I'm not interested," wouldn't life be so much better and it'd be a heck of a lot easier at Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah, so I found that I started looking at people, especially the more I got into personal development, that I could see people where they were at on their personal development journey. And so when I think about like all the experts and things that I've learned, books I've read that they, may or may not have, that I could tell by just the language they were using and how, the decisions they were making, kind of like where they were at. And so I just started meeting people where they were at. And so then it allowed me to keep, sharing my voice and kind of where I was at. And but at the same time, respecting where they were. And doesn't mean I have to accept it, the things that they may be telling me. I just look at it as like, of course you're going to be judgmental because you haven't had these experiences that I've had, or, you've made those choices and it's very different from mine. So I can hear the fear in your voice because that fear is coming from you and not from me.
yeah. Oh, juicy, juicy. So you and I had a fantastic conversation a few days ago about showing up as your authentic self. And I wanted to kind of refresh that and share that with our audience because it was an amazing perspective. It really was. So talk to me a little bit. So I talked about showing up as your authentic self and you shared your thoughts on that. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So several years ago, I'd worked with a mentor and he talked about how the word authentic was a pet peeve. And so I was like, what? Why? And it was just the fact that we can create and play in any area of our lives. And so and then that's all you. Like you're the one that's showing up. And so, right now here we are doing a podcast. Like if you want to come across and sound like, a radio show host and, have that little snazzy voice, like you can, but that doesn't mean it's not you, or even me being a Marine, I can turn on that like, yeah, let's go. Or, I'm just sitting there hanging out with a friend having a good, deep conversation. Like I can be all these things and I can be excited and I can be sad and I can be compassionate and I can do all that, but it's still all me. And so, I know with social media that, there is that perception that's out there. And so I make it a point, like in my audience, to show the transparent sides. Like I've shown when I'm crazy sweaty because I just got done with the gym, but I use it as a lesson to how can I help empower these other people and to do that and stay away from all those Instagram filters. Like this is me. You run into me in the grocery store, this is what you're going to see. And so we want to put our best foot forward, but at the same time, we want to show that we're relatable. But life is messy, and you can but it's also exciting because, like I said, you can become anything that you want to become, and it's up to you. And so you're the common denominator in all of it. And so I think that really that self-awareness and really building up who you are, and then that will help create that calm confidence, even if you're a little terrified inside to go try new things. But it's always down to that personal leadership and self-awareness.
Oh, so good. And it was a bit of an aha for me to just a shift in perspective on that word because right now we're hearing it everywhere. And
Mhm.
it really is. And and I think I associate the authenticity to my core values, and how I show up, not necessarily my persona, which I think is where um, a lot of people out there is they have this authentic persona, and it's not in alignment with their core values. So there's a disconnect. So you can always feel when somebody's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because what it hit me is in stepping into courage, being an introvert, somebody who stays quiet a lot, right? And did for many, many years until I had to finally be able to ask for help to take stage right now. And Beyonce has this persona, Sasha Fierce. And I heard this years and years and years ago. So whenever she takes stage, she's, uncomfortable, but she puts on this persona. And this is it's still her, it's authentic, but she's like, I'm not afraid, right? I got this. I got this. And
Mm.
I loved that, incorporated that, and felt like, okay, it's still a part of me. Like, I can be this confident version, but it's still me,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And so, your perspective of being authentic, it melded it together for me, but just gave me a shift in perspective. So it was so good. It was so good.
Mm.
Um, so thank you for that. Uh, Talking a little bit about you love branding,
Yes.
and associating branding with, you know, who we are. And I often work with entrepreneurs. It's like, okay, my business is this, and then I'm this, and kind of integrating the two. Would you agree that there needs to be an integration? Talk to us a little bit about branding when it comes to the individual and the business.
Oh, absolutely. So I just I think just being so driven by self-awareness and really as I've gone in my journey trying to decide like what it is that I want and what I'm creating, I've done a lot of reflection on little moments in time. Like I remember being in corporate and I'd come back from this amazing vacation and one of my coworkers was like, "I can't believe you do that." It's like, "What do you mean? You could do it too. Like you just call the travel agent, you make that decision." And so I started realizing like I was doing things a little bit differently. Even recently, I had happy hour with all my old corporate coworkers, and somebody says, "Do you still have your convertible?" Because I can't tell you how many times they would see me sprinting through the office because it was starting to rain and my top was down. And so kind of became this like my signature thing. And there's all those little things that it make you memorable. And and your the values and kindness and strength and all these things like how you interact with people, it's happening whether we're in person at a coffee shop, whether we're in the office and you're a client, or whether we're on social media. Like it's me. And so that's why I feel like branding kind of ties with that, because even when I was starting my business and I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to help people, I knew I wanted to help people. And I knew from day one, I wanted to build a personal brand, because I know that the way that I'm always learning and growing and changing, that as I became a business owner, that was still probably going to be happening. And I thought if I can get people to understand like who I am and what I stand for, and if I want to help one day with fitness because I've done all these crazy things, or if I want to help you with branding because I've, been branding, like I want to be able to do that. I don't want to have like this is, I'm a personal brand agency and now I'm trapped into that funnel. And so I just feel like branding and leadership, they go hand in hand. Because in this digital world, like you have to have a brand around your name.
I love that. And so you come from a very male dominated experience, right? Career within the military and then in the corporate. Um, what would you advise women who want to stand out in the sea of sameness, especially as a woman?
I think it really comes down to just knowing who you are and building up your skills and your strengths and really owning that. Because there's another saying, it's not bragging if you can back it up. And so I see a lot of times like women trying too hard, like to justify who they are or why they're doing something or why they're good at something. Or on the flip side, they're shrinking because they're not really stepping into that ownership. And so no matter where you're at in your journey, the more you can really dive into your strengths and your skills and really own that and who you are, then it and you treat people with, kindness, but then strength, standing your ground, using your voice, then it'll gain that respect. And so, I can't tell you how many meetings I was in where, the men kept talking over me, and then I'd be like, hey, this is really how things should work, or this is how your piece works, or, to correct them and show them like why, and be able to back that up. And so, uh, I just I've just been really fortunate, and I'm trying to decide. I've done a lot of thoughts on this too. Like, is it truly just the men that I was around, or and they were good men that would, or was it the way I was carrying myself that gained that respect? And which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like, I don't know.
Well, and I would imagine it's a little bit of both and your ability to communicate. So, communication is only 7% words. It's also, posture and breath and how we look at each other and all of that and tone of voice and being able to um, be in a room and be interrupted multiple times. And you were just sharing a story like that. And so take us through, okay, you said you said, "Hey." Did you really say, "Hey," or how did you kind of turn that around to say, you know, without saying it is, "Okay, boys, enough. It's time for me to talk and it's time for you to listen." How did you navigate that?
Hmm. Um, Trying to think of a good example. I feel like I would really just make it a point to, I think part of it comes down to the Marine Corps. Like, I really have to give that credit where credit's due, is really just standing in that posture and that strength and making eye contact and knowing that, um like, I think that like you said, those visual things like make such a difference. And so to be able to like look them in the eye and be like, hey, I have something to say. Oh, or this is why I disagree because of this, and to be able to always back that up. And so yes, I would speak up in meetings. There was a time where I had a boss, and he told me like I was in charge of the project, but then we would have all these meetings and he would just like run away with the meeting and be talking all this stuff. And so finally I went into his office and I just said, look, am I in charge of the project or are you in charge of the project? Like, I don't care which, just make a decision. And he just said, no, you're in charge. And so I had to call him out, but I had to do it privately. And so then that way he just like, after that, he backed away and it was totally my project. I ran with that for 15 years. And then the similar situation happened recently with a charity, and the founder, I was in charge of an aspect, and the founder would say, "Okay, go run with it. I don't want to be any part of it." And then he kept cropping in, and so I'm like, "Look, in or out, I don't care. Just make a decision, and then I can roll with it." So I just there are little things that push my buttons, and those kind of moments would push my buttons, but I feel like you have to do it in a way that's tactful but strong, and I feel like that comes from knowing your own strengths.
Yeah, and it takes a little bit of courage, right?
Yes.
So you feel, so I think this is what, we as humans need to understand is we feel when there's been a line crossed, right? We feel like, okay, you told me to do this. Now this is happening. I need to use my voice and do it in a so paying attention to that feeling, right? Knowing that we need to speak up and then stepping into courage, using our voice in a way that's strategic. So not if it's something that like I love that you pulled him aside privately to say, okay, not in front of the team. Like, wait, is this my job or your job? Which one? I don't care which one. Or, when you're in a meeting and it's appropriate to say, well, time out, let's talk about this. And, or should we be talking about, or, what's going on?
Yes. Well, and as a leader, like you have to know like when to lead and when to follow. And so that's why to be able to confront them like that, like I'm okay with being a follower, but and I'll be a really good follower, but it's just that wishy-washy in between. They're not really good at what they're doing, you're not really good at what you're doing, and you have to, speak up because it's in their benefit too. Like a lot of people don't realize that. You're not attacking them. It's in their best interest.
Right. And I think good leaders, they understand that, um, there's you have a team. This is where the strength finders comes into play. You may have a great strength that's my weakness, and I may have a great strength that's your weakness, and that may not be the hat that we're wearing for this team, but we may be doing that and switching hats to make this project work.
Mhm.
So knowing, but that all starts with communicating, right? What's going on? And then I always talk about this also comes down to, your mission, vision, values. What are we doing as a team? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And then as we move along in course, we're constantly, team meetings. How's it going? What's working? What's not? Who needs to step up? Who needs to shift?
Yes. Well, and one thing that the Marine Corps does that I also just incorporate in the way I do things is like I'm building the individual for the collective cause. And so if it's a company, you have that company mission, but the individual has to be strong and empowered and feel like they have control over their own destiny. But if you get everybody on the same page, like we're all rowing the boat in the same way. And so, whether it's the company or an individual, same thing, like, if I can build up that individual so they can go make their impact on the world, like, "Oh, my job here's done."
Oh my God. So these are two things that's okay. It's not bragging if you can back it up,
Yes,
is one of the things you said. So juicy. And building an individual up for the collective cause.
yes,
Because at the end of the day, we all want to get to the same place,
yes,
right? We all want the same thing, whether it's being productive, it's being kind, it's being that. So, okay, this is a question that just popped to mind. So, how do you show kindness without showing, especially as a woman, weakness?
I think that like you said, those visual cues, because I can be really kind and compassionate. I can make you feel seen. I can make you feel heard. And that presence, that strength of just my energy is going to show up and, long before those words of kindness come out of my mouth. And so I feel like they can really balance each other. And so I feel like if you can show people that you care, but you can also show people that you're strong and you need to like call people out sometimes, that's necessary too. And so I think you have to be able to show both, because if you're all just like leaning in on strength, you're just going to come in like a bull in a china shop. But if you're
Mhm.
leaning on all kindness, then all of a sudden it shows weakness. And so they really do balance each other.
Oh, so good. Okay, so good. I could just keep talking to you. But before we wrap up, let me say, okay, so with you knowing so much about branding and leadership and courage and showing up, what would you there's one piece of advice you want to give our audience that comes from your core of genius, from you being oh so fantastic. What's one thing you want to share with the audience?
So I think like one of my gifts when you talk about core genius is just the fact like I have such a diverse background and such diverse personal interests that I have this big picture umbrella where I can see things for people that they can't always see for themselves. And so my one piece of advice is for somebody to continually follow those little passions. And whether you're learning or taking classes or reading books or talking to different people, because those little things are, it's going to start to expand your mind, expand your possibilities in your own head, and start lifting up some of those limitations, because you'll start seeing other people that are doing these things or saying these things that you believe in. So yeah, keep growing and learning and becoming more expansive in your own limitations.
Oh, so good. So good. So for those people who are listening, and I know there are going to be many that want to stay connected with you, follow you, stalk you, love you, how can they get in touch with you?
So the first place I want to drive them to is LinkedIn. I feel like I share content over there. I would love to keep growing that audience, and that's really where I want to focus on the year to come. So if you want to learn more from me, that's the place to go.
Fantastic. And I've got it here at LinkedIn. It is Tami McVay, TAMIMCVAY, easy peasy. So get connected with Miss Tammy. Thank you so much for spending your time sharing your talents with our community. And that is truly a wrap for today's episode of Breaking Bad Communication. Thank you, listeners, for being here and tuning in. Before we sign off, don't forget to subscribe, and if what you heard today resonates with you or someone you know, share it, post it, put it out on social media, tag a friend. Know this, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your communication. And as you head back out into the world, remember every conversation is your chance to shape your life and the lives of others, whether it's a tough talk or a casual chat. Be clear, be intentional, and listen like it matters, because it really does. The better you communicate, the more your life aligns with what you truly want. So get out there, own your voice, speak your truth. Giddy up.